Okay, everybody. Professor Bell with you again. We're looking at Chapter 5 now over Geography of Race and Ethnicity. I'll be talking about the melting pot tapestry, the salad bowl, the full spectrum of hues of skin color, and all the like. So your textbook authors kind of begin here of the diversity that is the United States, looking at the different kinds of cultural festivals. And I'll look into a few more a little later in the presentation, but just to kind of give you an idea, just a few that I had found went looking for, Lindsborg, Kansas here, clearly very Swedish festival. I think they have their festival the first week of October of every year. So look them up sometime if you're interested in going out there and seeing. There is a lot of diversity of culture. If you don't know, if you just think everybody's blonde haired and blue eyed, you'd be wrong. These communities are quite diverse and have their own unique histories throughout Sweden. But anyway, it does tend to melt together after a few generations once it gets to America. But you still see the distinctive nature of the clothing they wear, types of regional syntaxes of their grammar and the way they speak. And of course, when we say Hispanic immigrants, this is of course Spanish speakers, but did they all come from Mexico? Well, no, of course not. Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Salvador, all through South America. You don't know what you're going to get till you get there. And I'll let you even know this too, that there's different waves of Hispanic migrants coming in, and the ones that have been here for in the United States for quite some time kind of had what was called a Chicano culture. And the new Latinos, the people that have come in more recently into the country, generationally they're different. The older generation feels very much American because they've been here several several generations. And so you shouldn't think that all Hispanic people would just fall in together necessarily. They actually have different mindsets on this. So understanding the time in a place is just as important as the individuals that are coming to it, and again when they come. Want to look at this concept of race that basically this is a tough topic. We know about Black Lives Matter. We've seen all the protests. We've seen some riots. We've certainly seen issues with policing, and I am going to deal with some of that. But we've always had a problem with race in America, and in fact, you're going to see it's not just us either. That said, I got a few stories to tell, but basically here, we're looking at race as essentially a social construct and not necessarily a biological difference. Now, you can look at different races and maybe see some differences there. For instance, with African Americans and sickle cell anemia, I was even actually reading about this adaptation that was very beneficial to them at one time, many thousands of years, I should say. Thousands? I don't know if it's thousands of years. I'd have to go back to my source. But it was a beneficial thing for them for a while. Can't remember why. I apologize. Maybe I'll put a note in or something so you can find it. I'd have to track it back down. But anyway, I also wanted to introduce you to this the various hues here, and I found this the Fitzpatrick scale here, looking about possible. Look here for your skin cancer risks here for people with very little melanin in their skin, so if they're albino, and anyone can be albino. We've seen albino people in Africa and elsewhere. It's among all people, all the way to the very, very dark skin colors here of African and Aboriginal peoples. But these concepts of light and dark, and they go within people, and across time again. So I want to tell you this story real quick. This woman right here in 2000 was Miss World. Priyanka Chopra, here's her name right here. You may know her as an actress, and she's in one of these police dramas in American television now. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. I don't know how much TV you watch. But what was interesting about this is this young woman right here won. Now, she's not young anymore. She won in 2001. But what was unique about this was also a culture within, a not just a skin color, but also a body frame as well. West Africa, coming from Nigeria, Agbani Darego, they had been sending full-bodied women to the Miss World, and they all came home losers. And then they finally went with this Western concept of beauty and the Western body type. Look at the frame of the woman. She's thin. She has narrower hips than you would have guessed from, the women that are typically seen as Nigerian beautiful. And, even women that go, think about your wedding. If you're female, what do most American brides want to do? They want to fit into a white gown. They want to lose weight. Actually, a lot of women in Africa want to gain weight. They want to have, larger breasts and more voluptuous and wider hips, because what does that say in their culture? They're going to be great mothers. And so I know this is a little difficult, again, talking about sex and race, but that's what we're looking at. Backstory real quick, too. If you look what happened in Nigeria, it was very unfortunate. When you win the Miss World, you get to host the next year they have it. So they had the Miss World beauty pageant there set for Nigeria, and it really set off a firestorm. There was rioting. There were lots of deaths. This did break down along Christian and Muslim lines, but they had the whole Miss World crew and all the ladies in the pageant and everybody else. They packed up everything and left. They went back to London, I think, to have it. So think about concepts again of beauty in African societies. The Western sense of beauty, the Western, the swimsuit competition. I think it's now. I don't think they have that in beauty contests anymore. Again, I could be wrong. I don't watch them, but these Western notions of beauty plays in here too, and so lighter skin plays pretty well. And why? That's just a Western notion of how these things work. So when we look at race in your textbook again, if you look at how the Iberians went to the New World in the areas that were colonized by Spain and Portugal, they certainly had racial mixing, miscegenation that was going on there. And so if you look at the second paragraph here, you'll see there was a hierarchy. So the Blanco, the whites, were on top. They were the pure ancestry. Most people in Latin America now are mixed, mestizos. So that would be of Indian and European extraction. You'd see just straight line Indians or Indios in places like Guatemala and the mountainous areas of southern Mexico, where you didn't have a lot of racial mixing going on. Same thing for the Andes in South America. And then you did have African ancestry coming in, not only with slavery, but other people moving into these areas. But being of darker skin tone, you would guess that they would fall in at the bottom of this. In the United States, we had these miscegenation laws up to 2 years before I was born. I was born in '69, and so outlawed. But what we've seen over time in America, and I honestly, I am in a mixed marriage. My wife is of Indian descent. She was born in South Africa but moved here, but she's South Asian, Hindu. So what we see is a marked rise since that in 1967 of the number of interracial marriages. And some people are still resistant to this. Certainly a lot of other people don't really care. I also found it funny, though, that I've had students approach me to say it's really cool that I'm married to, a brown woman, and a white man. But they seem to still have a problem with two skin colors away. I remember this distinct conversation, but they said, white shouldn't go with blacks. And, and I thought, well, why is it okay for one skin tone jump but not two? And of course, what is that? That's racism, and we're going to talk about it. When we look at Barack Obama when he was elected, one of the knocks against this fellow was that he wasn't black enough for black people, nor was he white enough for white people. And what this was coming down to was with a father from Kenya and a mother from America, born and raised in Hawaii. He was in Indonesia some too when he went to school, but he was born in Hawaii. But this is our concept of race. And when asked, why did he identify as black? I loved his answer. He said, I don't identify with it. America slots me into that position. My skin color, the texture, my hair and those things, I became black. And so it's kind of neat to look at as miscegenation has gone on, not necessarily with marriages, but with slaveholders back in American, days of slavery and whatnot. We certainly have lots of interracial children being born out of these. They might have been, I hate to say it like this, they could have been love affairs, but they more likely than not, they were probably forced and maybe raped. But you just don't know. That said, it's still funny that we have that much mixing going on, and then still people want to see that hierarchy. Now, I want to introduce this to you. It's not in your textbook, but I think it's really cool that these two people grew up together. So it's Mildred Jeter, an African-American woman, with Richard Loving. What a wonderful last name to have. And they kind of grew up together. They lived in the same community. They dated and then wanted to get married, but there were laws against that. So taking it all the way up to the Supreme Court, the Loving versus Virginia, winning this ability to exist, to be in a mixed race marriage was it took it a Supreme Court decision for that thing to happen. But it's really cool now. If you look on Facebook and other social media, look around for Loving Day, and you'll see a lot of really unique families that are coming together. And what is love but between, two human beings? And I don't know what your views on racism are, or even sexual orientation. This world is tough enough. This is an opinion of mine. You don't have to hold it. But this world has too much hate and too much going on. And what do I care if two different kinds of people in an unconventional relationship decide to love each other? I'd take it. Okay, I'll move on. When we look at foreign-born population in America, we'd certainly see that along the eastern seaboard, what would be known as the Boss Wash. This is Boston down to Washington, D.C., New York, Philly, and all these large cities here. So there's going to be lots of immigrant foreign-born people living in these areas. Certainly the gateway to Latin America down here. There's also, Haitian speakers, French speakers here too, but lots of Spanish speakers, Cubanos, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and many others from Latin America. Of course, this is the Hispanic borderlands through here. Heck, if you look at, Texas and these states right here, they were all Mexico. So, the population is undoubtedly going to be browner of skin color, but you certainly see that those gateways into those four southern states there in the southwest of California, here, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. So looking at these populations, your textbooks has some, unique terms here for you, but looking at what is an ethnic group of a linguistically, culturally, in manner of dress and belief and language and all of the same kinds of things that put those groups together. When you look at acculturation, though, this is adopting features of the host country in which they've moved into, and then adapted, but still held on to some of what made them them. You usually don't see full-on adoption of it until at least a generation later. But sometimes we'd see the intermarriages brings that along as well. So assimilation just says, and my wife is fully assimilated. So she was of a Hindu background from South Africa, but she moved here when she was 5. She was sent to a white Christian school, Briarcrest down in Memphis, had all white friends. Hell, she liked country music. She listened to country music when we met. I don't even like country music. So when we married, of course, this is that last vestige saying, I'm not Indian, I'm not Hindu or whatever. Now she could still be a practicing Hindu. She's not, but the point is that you're really adopting the culture group into which you just married. And certainly our kids have fallen in line with that as well. So wrapping up here, is it a melting pot? Well, again, I think after a few generations, but I like the salad bowl analogy, the metaphor here better. we've got a lot of different constituent parts from lettuce and spinach and carrots and onions and the dressing and the bacon bits and the whole 9 yards. Don't forget the croutons over there. And I tend to think that that's what we look like in motion, going toward that fondue, if you will. All right, I'll come back for part 2 of this lecture in a bit. See you soon, okay, guys?